Well, good evening, everyone. I'll call to order the June 21st, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board. If everybody will please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag's behind you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As I stated, we've got all members here except for Mr. Barranco, who said he would not be here. To my left, I've got Vice Chair Brad Cohen, Jay Scheckman, Patrick McTeague, and Steve Gannon. To my right, I've got at the end our newest member. Welcome, Marilyn Mamano. Next to her is Mary Fertig, and next to me is Sherry McCartney. So we have a quorum. First piece of business is to elect a board chair and vice chair for the upcoming year. Any nominations?
I would nominate Mr. Weymouth to stay on as chair.
We have a motion and a nominee and a second. Are there any other candidates?
For vice chair, I would recommend Mr. Cohen if he would like to stay on as vice chair.
We have a nomination for Mr. Cohen to stay on as vice chair.
I'll second that.
Jay seconds it. Are there any additional candidates for the vice chair? We'll put that forth as a slate. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Next piece of business is we are going to approve the minutes from the May meeting. Are there any revisions, clarifications, or adjustments? If not, if somebody would make a motion to approve the minutes.
Move we approve?
Sherry moved that we approve the May minutes. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Second was Patrick,
Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, we've got some people here in the gallery tonight. If there's anybody here that wishes to speak on any item, please stand, raise your right hand, and get sworn in. Who's doing the swearing in? Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yes. If you're going to speak to the board, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Before we get started, in addition to the board members, we've got Ella Parker here, who's the design and planning manager for the urban, what is this, the DSD?
Development Services
You're our
Department.
boss.
Yep.
Sherry Wallens here from the city attorney's office. Also, we have Jim Hetzel. Is Adam here? Did I see Adam?
No, Adam's not here.
Okay. And Michael Ferreira?
Yes.
There you go. Okay. And Leslie's going to be taking all the important minutes. Okay, so the first item, the applicant has requested to withdraw the application. Do we need to vote on that? Or can we force them to come in here and defend that application?
Yeah, I think they just need to speak on the record that they're withdrawing it, and then that's good enough.
Okay. Second case is a request for a,
They're there. The representative's right there.
Good evening.
how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Andrew Shine with Lockery and Chakas here representing the property owner and applicant. Yes, we are requesting to withdraw this application.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Andrew Shine.
Thank you.
So is this an item that we vote on? Okay.
No, he just withdrew it on the record. You're good after this.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Is this an item that we vote on?
No, he just withdrew
Okay,
it on the
good.
record. You're fine. Thanks.
On to item 2, which is a request for it was deferred from May 17th to today. The applicant is requesting a deferral to the August 16th, 2023 meeting. Ms. Toothaker.
Thank you, Chair. Stephanie Toothaker on behalf of the applicant. We are requesting deferral to the August meeting. The developer continues to meet with the clients. We did copy the, with the neighbors. We did copy the neighbors' legal counsel on our deferral, and I've spoken to him multiple times. He knew that we were deferring, which is, I assume, why they're not here, and I also communicated that to the neighbors.
Okay.
And I move to defer. This was the one I meant to make that motion
Let me
on.
read into the record real quick, Mary, if you would. Case number UDP S22022. Mary, you want to make a motion for deferral?
Yes,
on
I'm
that?
moving to defer until the August 16th meeting.
Okay. We have a motion, and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
Thank you very
opposed?
much.
Thank you. You bill by the 10th of the hour, right? So, I mean.
Just squeezed in enough.
All right, now we get down to the nitty-gritty. Case, the third case, case UDP Z23007. Mr. Ferreira.
Hello. Hi. Good evening, board members. Michael Ferreira, urban planner, case planner for the next two items on the agenda. So back in September of 2021, the Planning and Zoning Board sent out a communication to the City Commission to look into the parks in the downtown area that were not zoned for parks, recreation, and open space. The City Commission came back and expanded on that and said to look at it citywide. So the Parks and Recreation Department, as well as the Development Services Department, did some research and found that there were about 30 properties or parks that needed to be rezoned to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. Because of the number of rezonings that needed to take place, we've decided that it's a lot better to do it during with phases. So thus far, we've conducted 2 phases of the rezonings for a total of 16 properties. The 2 items before you right now are part of the phase 3. We do anticipate to have a few other phases to kind of finish out the remaining of the properties and kind of clean some things up. So that's the 2 phases. The third phase that we have right now is, we just have 2 in this phase. We're cleaning up some other issues we have for the parks. But the 2 items that you have before you are UDP Z23007. It's a rezoning from residential single-family, low-medium density RS8 district to Parks, Recreation, and Open Space P district, 520 Southwest 31st Avenue. At the moment, it's currently vacant, and we spoke with the Parks and Recreation Department, and there are no future improvements for that site. The next item is UDP Z23008, and it's a rezoning from residential single-family, low-medium density RS8 district and residential single-family duplex medium-density RD15 district to Parks, Recreation, and Open Space P district. It's south of the New River and north of Southwest 5th Court. It's about 11 properties within that cluster that's there. At the moment, it is also vacant, and there are no future improvements on that property. I have Enrique here from the Parks and Recreation Department, and here if you guys have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Ferreira?
Yeah, it's hard to see on the new tech IT configuration, but is that Hardy Park that's identified south of the river?
For this one right now, or?
Yeah, because I was the board member who originally brought this up, and the one park that I had in mind, which I haven't seen come through, and what I'm hearing from you is not slated for rezoning, is Hardy Park, which is zone RAC CC.
So Florence Hardy Park is UDP Z22008. I can't see which phase.
It was,
Just for clarification, can you tell me which case you're referring to?
It wasn't a case, it was, I'm sorry?
Okay, are you asking a question in reference to one of the cases? He just presented them both, so what's your comment?
Okay. Are you addressing Hardy Park currently?
So Hardy Park was phase 1. Good evening, Enrique Sanchez, Parks Deputy Director. So Hardy Park was in phase 1,
Yeah.
and so that already went through planning and zoning, was approved by commission.
Okay, that was probably the one meeting I missed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question for Enrique, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
The first,
Microphone.
Enrique, for the first one, case number 3, you described it as vacant. Is it currently being used as a park?
So it's a recently acquired property for the city, and there's been, I guess, some desire to turn it into a park. So right now, it's just an empty plot of land. So at this point, we would reach out to the neighborhood and see. There, as Michael mentioned, there's no funding in place and no plans for future development, but there's ways we can create an open space that where people can just passively recreate.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Was there public participation on these yet already? They presented to the public?
I'm sorry, I just have to get clarification. Are these questions for both cases, for the record?
Yeah, I was going to ask if we could just divide these case by
Yeah,
case.
you're
Yeah, I
So if we have
Sorry.
speakers.
I
right,
would
so-
prefer
so-
if you do them separately, Michael.
So I introduced it as the third item, which is UDP Z23007. He presented both. If you have a question on a specific case, identify the case, and we will vote on these individually. But if we can kill two birds with one stone with one question, so be it. But if it's something applied to one or the other, please identify it.
Okay, so my question is on UDP Z23007, item 3. And that was the recently acquired small lot that looked like it might have been a home at one time, probably. And my question is, were the neighbors informed that it was going to be turned into a park? And are there any objections, especially from the neighbors that are right next door? That I'm expecting that could be the case. Someone might not want that kind of activity right, 5 feet from their home.
Yeah, so there was a public participation meeting on May 17th, and it was supposed to be it was with the Riverside Park Residents Association and the Sailboat Bend Civic Association. That was on May 17th. There was also a mail notification that was sent out, and there was also signage posted on the property.
Isn't this in Melrose Manor?
Yeah.
Which one, I'm sorry, which
It
one?
was item 3, so Z23007, I'm talking
Oh, I'm
about, the
sorry.
small corner lot. That's what I'm talking about right now.
Sorry, yeah. Sure, yeah. So it was so for the 300 feet, it was the Riverside Park Residents Association and Sailboat Bend Civic Association.
That's the wrong one. That's not the one we're
That's number
asking
4.
about.
Okay, if you want, I can go back, and maybe a typo. I can go back and take a look to see the associations that was actually sent out to. But they were sent out to the associations within 300 feet.
I believe the association is here.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm sorry,
Just
yeah.
hang on.
We're going to get to the public comment in just a minute, sir, okay? Do you have any follow-up question? No?
No, I'll
Okay.
wait to listen to what the
Brad?
public says. and move on.
Just to piggyback on that, I'm a proponent of green space. What I worry about is that generally when we put up green space like some of these, there's no fences, there's no security. I don't know what the lighting's gonna be. So like sometimes I see there's some people here that are probably going to object, I would imagine, to some of these being turned into park and rec, some of these lots. Is there, what I'm worried about is, because you've listed so many in each one, and then we're supposed to vote on it in its entirety, it worries me. Like, let's say I don't like that one, right? I don't like that specific one, because there's some people here that I'm sure that are gonna talk about it and probably have the same concerns that I have about traffic and foot traffic and things like that in that residential neighborhood. I don't know if the best way to do it is to vote on it as a whole, or to piecemeal, like, there might be one or two of these that I don't like, but I don't know if I can cut those out of what, I guess I could, right? If we vote on, let me ask staff, if we vote on something, can we piecemeal it? Can we cut out some of these? Like, let's say there's some people here that are objecting to having a park right
Can-
next door to their house?
Excuse me, may I clarify? So
Sure.
there's two items before you. One item, item 3, is the one in Melrose Manor. And
Right.
it's a single lot. The other one in Riverside Park neighborhood, it's 11 or 12 parcels,
Right.
but they're all together. It was gonna be a development.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was split.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if you were to look at it, it's,
Gotcha. All
it's one
Okay.
3-acre
Thank you.
plot. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I misunderstood. Okay. You had answered my question. But it doesn't answer my question as to the lighting, the fencing. That's not within our scope today. Today is only the zoning, correct?
Correct.
And then once it's zoned for that, then is there a plan to develop these pieces of property for Park and Rec and how they would be developed and what the plan is to develop them and how, what we're looking at or no?
No,
No.
so the plan and the direction we've gotten is to try to secure these plots to remain as green space. So they're
Right.
not developed into some other type of property.
Right?
But right now, there's no funding identified for either of these two parcels. Some of the other ones you'll see, pardon me, some of the other ones you'll see.
Yeah.
Are established park, like Hardy Park.
Right, right.
That
I
has
get it.
Southside School,
Yeah.
it has ball fields, tennis courts.
Yeah, yeah.
All that. So, but these two tonight are vacant.
And there's no plan and there's no funding and there's no nothing.
There's no long-term, so.
But the city
we-
owns them.
But the city owns them, and for some of these, we've done some small things, put up a fence, set out some picnic tables at the request of the neighborhood association. Maybe even do other small amenities. But for the most part, they will remain passive open space until funding is identified and a plan is worked on.
And if they weren't parks, what would the city turn them into? I mean, we have so much empty land, I look at just this area right here, right?
Sure.
I drive by empty lots that the city owns all over the place off of Sistrunk and within the neighborhood of Sistrunk, directly off of 6th. So if we didn't turn them into parks, what would these do? Nothing? They would just sit there?
Theoretically, or be sold or used for some other city purposes, storage.
Okay, thanks.
Chair?
Sherry, go ahead.
Thank you. I had the same question as Brad, so I wanted to dig into that a little deeper. The physical status of the property would not change, just its designation. I want to make sure that we make that clear so that the residents understand that what we're doing here today is renaming it, in effect, right? We are changing its zoning so that it may become a park in a more active way. And at that time,
Yeah.
wouldn't the citizens have an opportunity to talk about the lighting and the fencing potentially and other uses of the park before it became something other than what it is right now?
That's correct. And part of the reason for the zoning of the park is it provides some protections. Once a parcel becomes a park, it requires almost like a supermajority of the commission to use it for something else. So that was the idea, was to protect areas to be.
What about maintenance?
So it would go under contract and go under our maintenance plan. It would be mowed regularly, so staff won't be there every day, but they'll be there several times a week to pick up trash and again, we would work with the neighborhood on what they'd want to see in the short term. If the neighborhood in the short term wants a chain link 6-foot fence and blocked it off until it can be properly developed, we would have that discussion with them. But, because again, we don't want to put something that's going to create a nuisance for the neighborhood. We want to create something that's going to be enjoyed and activated.
So input at a later date would be available?
Yeah, every neighborhood is different. Every, what happens in every neighborhood. So we try to work with them on that, on what they want to see.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the city before we open up to public participation?
I'd like to make one more statement about Enrique and the Parks and Rec. Our neighborhood, Lauderdale Beach, uses them a lot for different things in the parks, and they're very responsive, and they listen to what the neighborhoods want. So, again, everything he's saying, I believe is true, that if we zone this a park, it will end up what the neighborhood wants it. however much of a park or less of a park, or how accessible, not accessible. They're very, very accommodating, whatever it's worth.
Yeah, Mike. I was gonna wait until we had the group discussion, but now that Steve brought it up, in my experience, like Parks Department is at the top of the list for quality of departments in our city and activating space and being responsive and proactive. So I echo that.
Okay. Any other comments before we open it up to the public? Thank you, Enrique. Sir, please approach the microphone, state your name. Were you sworn in, sir?
Yes. My name is Jerry Covington. I'm president of Melrose Manors Homeowners Association. And for your information, my house is immediately attached to it diagonally to the northeast of this property. It's where I live. This discussion has been going on for some number of years. It was first presented to me to present to my association membership approximately 5, maybe 6 years ago by our commissioner, then Commissioner McKenzie. And we had a lengthy discussion as to what it was that this could be, because this house has been, or this property has been vacant as it stands right now for maybe 20, 25 years. I've been living there since 1980. And the property went into decay approximately 4 or 5 years after I moved there. It became a place where homeless were sleeping, and drug addicts were hanging, et cetera. So the city tore it down as I can't remember the term they used at the time, but it was a nuisance, okay? And anyway, about approximately 5, 6 years ago, when Commissioner McKenzie approached me, I then presented it to the Homeowners Association as to what is it that we want to do with this property if it's turned into anything. And the first thing that we came up with was, why not make it a park? There is a park on the northeastern corner of Melrose Manor, Guthrie Blake Park. And it's a very nice park until very recently, this year, as a matter of fact, homeless began sleeping and camping themselves in that park. There are no tables in that park. There were a few benches in that park. We wanted to do the same with this piece of property, to make it a green space, to put in limited growth trees or evergreens or whatever it may be, to make it look nice. And also the city was going to, at least they told us, that they plan to keep it up, mow the grass, et cetera. Right now, the grass is cut approximately once a month, and trash is tossed into that empty lot. I can tell you this also, the foundation of that property is all sand. Trucks back up into it and get stuck. I'm talking about the 250, the 350, or the larger pickup trucks. They get stuck in that property and they require a tow truck to come pull them out. I try to explain, don't go there because you're gonna get stuck, and they do. But what can I say? What can the city do about it? I don't know. I'm hoping that they could put some grass in that park when it becomes a park, and to put some beautiful indigenous evergreens or some plants in that park, in the area. We do not want benches. We do not want tables where people can congregate and sleep on, et cetera. But we are looking forward to turning it into something which is what we do not have now. So, and like I said, my house touches that property on the northeast corner. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to stick with 23007. Mary Keel, followed by Caprice Scott, followed by Ted and Sarah. Good evening.
Good afternoon, panel.
Please
My
state your
name-
name for the, yep,
My
thank
name
you.
is Mary L. Kill, and I live at 3010 Southwest Second Court in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I've been there for 46 years. December will be 47 years. And I came to the meeting tonight to let you all know that I totally disagree with the rezoning of that lot. Now, those are my neighbors who lived in that house way back when my son went to school with their daughters. The dad lost the house, so I know them. My kids are graduated and have their own families now, so that's how long I've been there with that family in that home. So when they lost it, I lost a good friend, and they are also my church members at the church. But the reason why I say I'm against the rezoning, first of all, the lot is too small for a park. The lot is too close to 31st. We don't want a fence. We don't want to put our kids into a prison. We want our kids to be able to run free. They have a park on First Street. Why can't they put that park to the point where the kids can play in it? Right now, they got it all wrapped up and tied up and pinned down. Nobody can go there because they said the homeless are always there. If we take care of the parks, keep the homeless moving, then our kids can play and be at peace. So why would we put a park in the neighborhood? What we should do is put a single-family home back in that lot. There is no reason why we should bring up a park in a smaller area when there are so many people who need somewhere to live. Put a singular family home back there in that spot. And that way, we can all be happy. But with all this digging and planting and putting in trees here and there, it's unnecessary when we already have a park. And I really appreciate you all listening to me.
Thank you, ma'am. Caprice Scott?
Thank you, panel. And I definitely concur with Mary. First of all, I would like to
Please,
say,
ma'am, please state your name for the record. Into the,
my name is Caprice Scott,
thank you.
and I'm at 2848 Southwest 4th Street. And I definitely concur with Mary. Put something there. There are houses on every corner there. Build a house there, but definitely not a park, definitely not a place where people are going to come and bother the neighbors on both sides. Definitely not a place that's going to be a place where it's going to be dangerous because 31st Avenue is a high-traffic area. Put something there with a bench or something like that. It's only going to lead to someone getting killed. In addition to that, the park that is there on Southwest 1st Street, well, when I had a dog before he died, I walked there every day. No one can get in there. No kids can play in there. I can't walk in there. People sleep there all the time, and I don't care how much you call the police. No one is going to move those people from there, and that's even a danger because that's not being maintained. Talk about being maintained. Maintain the park that's there. Let that park be a park that's being maintained. I mean, no one can ever go in there. We've tried several times. No one can go in there. No kids can go in there and play. Imagine having a swing set in your backyard that was so dangerous that your kids can't even use it. Well, that's what Southwest 1st Street is. That's what that park is. It's very dangerous. No one can go there. No one is able to use it. So why put that on 31st Avenue, even a green space? At some of the meetings, you had the code enforcement come in and saying, even when there is a hurricane or something like that, if a tree falls down, you gotta put a tree right back. So what's gonna happen when the tree grow up and fall on somebody's house? I mean, talking about turning it into a green space, what kind of green space? Is it green space gonna be maintained like the lot is being maintained right now? Not being maintained. Is it gonna be maintained like the park is being maintained? Not being maintained. I'm sure that we can come up with another solution for that piece of land. I definitely agree with Mary. Put a house there, something there, a smaller house maybe, move a family in there, and let them live. There's a house on every corner except for where the church is. There's no house where the church is. Put something there that's actually going to be usable and not turn this into a green space. I definitely, once you rezone one piece of property for something, that's going to hold and that's going to remain, and that's going to feed into further destruction into the neighborhood. You know, we've already seen what's going on within the neighborhood with the problems with the flooding, and I'm not here to get on that because we know that's not going away. You know, quite naturally, we know it's not going away. These are my neighbors, and we are some very intelligent people, and we know the solution to that problem. Bring back up the grade of the land, but definitely don't take our community and turn it into another place for vagrants and another place that is not going to be maintained, and that's just going to be another eyesore for the community.
Mary?
Yes, could I ask the name of the park that you're referring to? Pardon? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And, well, I guess we'll ask you later what the status is with that.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
I have a question, Mike.
I'm sorry.
May I ask you a question? Sure. I just know that we're thinking in terms of a park, in terms of, you're thinking specifically about the other park, which obviously the condition, the city it hears you loud and clear, and I definitely recommend connecting with Enrique so that you all can communicate those issues directly to the folks from the city who can help make sure that the conditions are better at that park. But park is a very broad category. So, you know, let's say, like, within the realm of park, you could have a community garden or something where people are able to grow, you know, plants and have their own little plots and for the community or something. Like, that might also be considered a park. Like, is that something that you would also be completely against?
Yeah, I would be totally against putting anything there.
Okay.
It borders where two houses sit. If you put shrubs there and the shrubs grow to 3 feet tall, that becomes a place for someone to lurk, to be able to jump out on a homeowner when they're coming home late at night. Okay, let's put some lights over there. Well, look at the condition of the lights in the neighborhood. You know how many times we got a call to get a light put back in? No. Look at the trees. Look at where the trees are that border the 31st Avenue side. And in addition to that, I'm just going to bring it up. The signage where you put the sign for this hearing is so small, no one could actually see it. I actually drove by it 4 times, and because I have to turn that way to go home, I had to turn around, come back, park, get out, take the picture, and further send it to my neighbors. You also mentioned that you had a meeting with the Riverside. Well, is Riverside and Melrose Manors? Oh, okay, great, because I never heard of that. So all of those things together, to me, spell a plan to do something that's not going to be something that we could live with. We're not interested in a community garden. We're really not interested in a community garden. My neighbors, they have homes. They don't need a community. I don't see them being able to benefit from people coming in there throwing stuff and nobody ever being able to clean up. They purchase homes there, they live there, and they want, you know, but they're there because they want to live there. Their legacy is there. So why would we destroy somebody's legacy? Just think of that same thing if it were your home. Don't think of it as just a 531 31st Avenue. Think of it as being your home and what you would want to see there. I mean, I don't see where that's going to even make a difference for the community for you to grow 8-foot trees there so when a hurricane comes and falls in somebody else's yard and it's another month before they pick it up. I don't see where having shrubbery there that might get overgrown and cause some of these kind people to be robbed or something. I don't see. Right now they're throwing trash there. You can't even keep them from throwing trash there. Come on, really? And then you want to put a fence there. Let's put some bars there. That's really good. Let's just put some bars over there. Just put some bars, erect some bars like a little jail. And just put it right there in our community. And that's going to give us a real good sense of community if we have some more bars, some more. jail bars. So I'm just thinking that you have to rethink these things and put it like if it's your house.
Understood.
We want you to think of it as being your home. This is our home. This is where we live. We
Understood.
want you to think of it that same way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I should have probably stated at the outset that unless you're the president of a homeowner association, you get 5 minutes. Other than that, everybody gets 3 minutes, so pardon my oversight on that. Ted and Sarah.
Actually, that was my mistake. Come for the next time. Oh, wait. Sorry about that.
Sir, would you like?
Yeah, I had a
You've had
question.
your 3 minutes, but
I have a question for him anyways.
for him?
Yes.
Actually, he has 5.
Huh?
He's the president.
Again, Jerry Covington, President of Melrose Manors Homeowners Association, and I didn't give my address, but it's 3050 Southwest 5th Street. Back when this plan first was brought to my attention, prior to me taking it to the HOA, I communicated with the homeowners on the southeast corner of 31st Avenue and 5th Court. And I communicated with the homeowners adjacent to, just to the east of this property, which is, I believe their address is like 3041 of Southwest 5th Court. And mine is 3050 Southwest 5th Street. The house adjacent, immediately to the north, is a developmental rental. It's been a rental for approximately 15 to 20 years. Okay, so that's who lives in that home, are people who do not own the home. It was presented that we would like to have some green space, possibly. It was said that we would like to have some shrubs or short trees, that things that would not go, like there's a what's it called, Australian pine on that property. And it must be 100 feet tall or more. And we were hoping that that would be cut down, because it's one of those trees that are not wanted in South Florida anyway, I'm told, but it's been allowed to grow. The city did come out this past week, and they did clip the trees that are on the 31st Avenue adjacent to that property, immediately to the west, because you had to, even myself, duck down to walk down the sidewalk, because the trees were overgrowing the sidewalk. It's not kept up, but we're hoping that something could be done to that property to maintain it in a condition where the families in that area could enjoy it. We do not want tables, because we felt that if someone wanted to have a picnic or whatever it is that they want to have there, they can bring their table. They can bring their barbecue grill if they need to, and they can take it with them. That's what it was all about, not to have tables or benches permanently mounted in that area.
Mike, may I ask him a question? Oh,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Jay.
How would you feel about if the city sold the land to somebody and they built another home there?
It doesn't bother me, but the way that the whole program was presented to me was that let's make it green space. Limited use green space where you can have, there's no swings, no basketball courts, that type of thing. No place for anyone to encamp overnight unless they, I guess, bought their tent, but they can do that anywhere. I go over to Riverland Park in the mornings to walk, and the homeless are sleeping in the pavilions. So if they can do it at Riverland Park, which is our large community park, then they can surely do it in this small space, but we're hoping not. And the people that live adjacent to this property did agree to have a park there.
Ladies, Mary first.
There was a question about a community meeting on the next item. Was there a community meeting in your neighborhood? Did Parks and Rec come out and hold a public participation meeting?
The community, the Parks and Rec has not attended. I shouldn't say never, because they do come to our meetings. But they did come to a meeting, And but they
okay.
did not talk about this particular property because it was not on the agenda to be made into a park at the time.
So there's never been a,
Our commissioner came and
Right.
presented it to us.
but there's never been a public participation meeting with Parks and Rec? Or with planning, or, I'm sorry, with the planning department? Did you hold?
There was a meeting on the 17th of May, which I attended, with the Riverside Homeowners Association as well. That was a presentation of what they wanted to do with those properties. Not only ours, but the one adjacent to
Right.
the river there.
So, okay, I'm understanding. I typically, there's a meeting just within the impacted rezoned area as opposed to other, grouping them together.
So there was a public participation meeting on May 17th. Because of the amount of rezonings that we're doing, we do one public participation meeting, but the notices do go out to all of the residents that are affected. And in this case, for this particular property, mail notice was sent out to about 45 properties just for this item. So a mail notice was sent out.
And where was the meeting held?
At Hardy Park.
Yes. Southside, yes.
Are you done, Mary?
Yeah. Well, I'll have comments on that when we get to
Marilyn?
that.
Yeah, Mr. Covington, hi. We hear this concern all the time from our neighbors about we can't have parks because we have homeless. And I feel for it because I have that situation in my own civic association area. But I've made this point of view many times is just because we have a problem now, we should not foreclose the opportunities of having exactly what you want as a green space and an amenity to the community. So when you say, I just heard you say that there was a public participation meeting, so I'm heartened to see that that was done. And when you've been working on this for quite some time.
Yes, I have.
Has the sentiment changed from when you started working on this and people asking for a park and wanting some green space? Has the sentiment changed?
Well, there were members that were against the park being put there. At the time when it was first presented to the HOA. But then the majority voted to allow for the green space.
Okay, so there has been a vote taken at
Yes.
the homeowners
Yes.
association?
Yes.
And it was in favor of this park?
In favor of the park.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, is there anybody else that would like to be, ma'am, is it going to be quick? Because I know I didn't have the timer on you, and I apologize, so this is not what we normally do, but go ahead.
Okay, like the president said, I wasn't there that meeting, but I never been in favor of a park being on that empty spot. And if you all have ever considered giving us like a recreation center in our neighborhood, because they're always having parties, blocking streets and everything. So if we could get a recreation center, the city can make its money back from the rec when they get together parties, whatever, keep the traffic out of the street, stop blocking the neighborhood. Take that into consideration. Build a little Melrose Manor Community Center on that spot.
That's above our pay grade. We're just looking at the zoning.
Huh?
That's above our pay grade. We're just looking at the zoning. How it gets utilized would be up to the city and the Parks and Recs.
Okay, well, like I say, we're against the rezoning for a park.
I understand.
I'm sorry, ma'am, just for the
All
record,
right.
can you restate your name?
Mary L. Kill.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak on item Z23007? Seeing, hearing none, we will close the public participation for that item, bring it back to the board. Sherry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a question, I think, probably for the city. When this property was obtained, was it because foreclosure on taxes, or was it part of a program to affirmatively purchase property with the idea of creating parks?
I'm not sure the circumstances that we obtained it. I just know it was a city-owned property that we were directed to.
Okay, so we don't know how the city came to own this piece of
I-
property, or when the city came to own this piece of
No,
property?
from my understanding, it was a few years back, maybe it was
But it-
5 or 6 years ago, but.
But then it wasn't part of an effort to create parks around town. It's just that the city happens to own it, and so an idea popped up that we would create a park. Is that how
Sure.
that came about?
And so the city also has we're part of the 10-minute walk program, so we have a commitment to try to, so that every neighbor has a park or passive or green space to go to within 10 minutes of their home. So right now, because of streets and the way things are blocked off, this is an area that doesn't have a lot of parks in it, so this would fill a gap.
So, and this is on 31st Avenue.
Yeah.
I have trouble thinking that a park, when I think park, I think people, I think playing, I think things going on 31st Avenue, it doesn't seem like a particularly good place for a park. But I wanted to know whether it was part of a grand plan or whether we just happened to own it and therefore we thought we'd make a park out of it.
I think we happen to own it. I think there was a need in the area, and there was some
There's a need in the
desire.
area for a new park.
Yeah.
Even though we're not really maintaining the other park.
Well, so if I can speak to that, so Guthrie Blake Park was vandalized. So there's a playground on the park, has nice artificial turf surfacing. Playground's probably about 6, 7, no, I'd probably say 8 or 9 years old. Several months back, it was burned and vandalized, and it's become unusable. So it's been taped off. The investment in these playgrounds is several $100,000. So it takes some time to marshal those resources and go through the process to replace it. So it's unfortunate that that's happened in that neighborhood. It was a nice little quaint park. There's still, it's probably about 1.5 acres, and there's still a lot of space, but that particular area where the playground was vandalized and is closed off to the public right now.
All right, thank you.
Mary? Microphone.
That I better turn my microphone on, thank you. I think that though this is being zoned park, what it sounds to me like is this is open space, and I don't see a way to accomplish having open space without zoning it park, because for many of us who've advocated for the park zoning, we know that's the only way to protect public space because it kicks in the charter where you have to have a supermajority to change the zoning in the future. So it actually protects open space. I understand the concerns of the neighbors. I'm concerned, once again, this is the second time in recent months that a public participation meeting has been held at some distance from a neighborhood, and I think it makes it hard for a neighborhood to participate when that's the case. So on a separate note, when we get to For the Good of the City tonight, I'd like to talk about public participation meetings and why we as a board ask that they be held so that neighbors actually could know what's going on. That aside, the fact that the neighborhood association has been involved with this and has been and has supported it, I think is important. So I know these are various conflicting ideas. I mean, and I almost wish we could defer this and let it go to a real neighborhood, real public participation meeting as opposed to having held something miles away and called that public participation. But I just want to say there is a difference between having an active park and having a passive open space that is increasingly important in our city. We've talked a lot about asphalt and what it does to us. The only way we get around that is to have some open spaces where we have grass and trees. And I don't know if that makes a difference or not on how that's handled, but I just wanted to comment on that before we.
Just out of curiosity, do you know of a meeting space they could have used that was closer than Hardy Park?
Mary's house.
We're stretched out. We're meeting in the building department because City Hall's compromised and we're 2 or 3 miles away, which is
Riverland Park.
equally distant. So I hear what you're saying. We want to have someplace that's proximate to the piece that we're
Yeah.
talking about, but it needs to be someplace that's got bathrooms, lights, air conditioning, and so on and so forth. So I am familiar with Southwest Fort Lauderdale, but I'm not familiar enough to know where there's a meeting place. So I hear what you're saying, but.
Or
There's
just
schools, there's
reinstitute Zoom.
churches, there are.
I don't know why we got
Or a
rid of
new rec
Zoom.
center.
Marilyn?
Yeah, I'd just like to ask Enrique, you've been working on this a long time too, because you've been here a long time too. The previous commissioner was in favor of this, and the current commissioner is in favor of this. Can you confirm that?
Yes, that's correct.
And can you confirm that the community had a community meeting, a homeowners association meeting, and there was a vote, and they voted in favor of this?
That was before my time, but that's what I had heard.
You had heard that, okay.
I wasn't part of that, but yeah. So.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments?
I have, oh, you mean from the board or public?
No, the public's closed.
Okay.
Public participation's closed.
Yeah,
Go
okay,
ahead, Jay.
yeah, I mean, to Marilyn's point, the association did have a vote. I mean, the commissioners are in support of it. I think that the zoning of a park, you're right. If land is mismanaged, it can be an unfortunate nuisance to a community, and something has to be done about that. But that's a separate issue from there being land in the first place to be able to have a recreational center in the future. You know, you'll never have a recreational center if there's no land preserved for the use of something. You know, I definitely think the use needs to be considered. Maybe in the meantime, you know, a great example for what this could be is Fort Lauderdale's Welcome Park. You drive up Federal Highway, it's just some grass and a couple trees. There's nowhere for anyone to hang out. I mean, I never see any homeless people there. I mean, that's a great example of when you're driving down a road and you see house after house, to have a little bit of green space, to have promote the fresh air in the neighborhood, without doing something that's going to become a big overgrowth of shrubs where people can pop out of. And maybe one day it can be built into a recreational center or anything else, but I think that it makes sense to zone this as a park.
Does somebody else have a comment? Steve?
I'm just going to echo what Jay says. I feel the same way. If the land isn't preserved, it can be changed in the future. If we preserve it now as a park, it can become a rec center. It could even become, in the future, affordable housing that we partner with if we decide not to do that stuff. And I'm hoping to God that someday we figure out this problem, this homeless problem with parks, so we don't stop hating parks because of the homeless people. Someday it's going to be fixed, but we need to preserve that space.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Patrick?
I guess just a couple quick thoughts. I heard what the neighbors said. I think they brought up some valid points about why this property is not a good one for a park. It's small, it's on a busy street. They have concerns and, you know, the look that it would obtain if they have to fence it and certain shrubberies, and how that could be a point where someone hides as they, you know, go around their neighborhood. It seems to me that this would be a good option, maybe for the city to, I forget the word, but put up for sale and then potentially use the funds to rehabilitate the Guthrie Park, or the park that right now is dilapidated and could use upkeep and is a more substantial park for the community to enjoy. So, I mean, those are my thoughts with this little lot.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
I really don't think I want to substitute my judgment for the judgment of the community, and the community working with the city on what will be the eventual use of that property, I think is the appropriate approach. What's before us today is simply to land bank the property, turn it into a park so that it can continue to be discussed between the community and the city of what they want to do. If they should decide in the end that they want to put a small recreation building there, that's fine. If they decide that they actually don't need a park and they want to then sell it, then 4 city commissioners can say, we'll sell it for something else. But they've been working on this for 5 years. And I don't think in my judgment, I don't want to substitute my judgment for an ongoing issue that's been discussed and hashed out by the community and its 2 commissioners. I'm very much in favor of zoning this as a park and letting the process go forward.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm sorry, we closed the public portion of it. Are there any questions, any other questions and comments from anybody on the board? Hearing and seeing none, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion
Okay,
see, I'm new, so I don't know the exact words, but I'd like to make a motion to approve case number UDP Z23007 to be zoned as a park.
Recommendation to rezone as a park.
Recommendation to rezone as a park. Thank you.
okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that, Jay Schechtman.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please call the roll, Leslie.
Mr. Scheckman.
Yes.
Ms. Fertig.
Yes.
Mr. McTeague.
No.
Ms. McCartney.
No.
Mr. Gannon.
Yes.
Ms. Romano.
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen.
No, and for the same reasons that Mr. Matee expressed.
Mr. Weymouth. Chair
No.
Weymouth. Sorry? No?
No.
That fails. Would anyone like to express, Brad just said, does everybody else agree who recommended no, that that's the reason?
As what Mr. McTeague expressed,
Yes.
amongst other things, yes, that's a good foundation. There's more to grow on, but,
Okay, thank you.
okay, so motion fails, so it does not get rezoned. Correct?
It goes to the city commission now.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to UDP Z23008. We already had the presentation. Mr. Insera, would you like to come up and get your 3 minutes of fame? Please pardon the cell phone timer, but it's all I've got.
Okay, no problem. Hello, my name is Ted Insera, and I'm born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in 1956. I've lived here the entire time. I was surprised to find out that this piece of property, which is beautiful, right on the river, just on the south side of the swing bridge, was not already a park. I mean, it's got beautiful ranch fencing, there's beautiful trees, they've got tables, and I'll tell you the truth, I honestly thought it was a park, and to hear that it's not, and to hear that there's a possibility of them building on this piece of beautiful property we can't have that. This has got to be rezoned into an open space, to a park. I mean, you're right there by the swing bridge. It's right in the heart of the Riverside neighborhood, which is one of the coolest, nicest little neighborhoods that we have here in Fort Lauderdale. And to think that they could lose this piece of property, or not just they, but just the city itself could lose this to structures, which the view there is just amazing, for the city of Fort Lauderdale. You can, with the swing bridge, with the river, with the boats, with the trees. This is just a prime, beautiful piece of Fort Lauderdale that needs to be kept the way it is and not just cemented over and developed. Thank you.
Thank you. Estelle Brennan. Estelle, seeing that you are the president of the association, you're going to get 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Estelle Brennan. I'm the president of Riverside Park Civics Association. And I'm here tonight. Actually, I was supposed to have a board meeting, but I felt compelled to be here instead to make sure that this rezoning happens, because it's so important, not just to our neighborhood, but for other neighborhoods and communities going through this. Our new park was purchased with park bond money as part of the land acquisition portion of the parks bond. So I was really surprised when I found out that it was not, the P designation didn't come with the purchase of this land that we all voted on to be a park and to be purchased as green space. So I'm here to express that the Riverside Park Neighborhood and Civic Association is in favor of this park designation. For at least a decade before I was around, this land was just fenced up, grass growing as tall as me, and neighbors were coming to meetings just saying, how can we get this as green space? How can this property be made available for us to use? And the second those fences came down and the lawn got mowed by parks, I mean, people just were drawn to it. People are there every day enjoying it. Since it was created, there's this man that rides his bike there every day with his radio and just reads by one of the trees by the water. As a civic association, even before the parks bond was a thing, we've always imagined what we could do there. Now that it's a reality that the city has purchased this, we've had multiple brainstorming meetings as a civic association, and we have all kinds of great ideas. We're willing as a neighborhood and a civic association to put in sweat equity, fundraisers, whatever we would need to do to put in whatever installations or amenities that we might see fit. We want to keep it as more of a passive green space. Right now, there's picnic benches that you can often see people eating lunch at. There's a few beautiful big oak trees that exist there now. We'd love to contribute more to the tree canopy. Riverside Park has a really large tree canopy as it is, and that kind of goes with our slogan that it's cooler in Riverside Park. And this park is just one of the many new additions to our very old Florida neighborhood that keeps its charm and stop it from, being overdeveloped. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on UDPZ 23008? Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public participation of this meeting, bring it back to the board for discussion, vote.
Turn my microphone on.
Before you make a motion, let's just make sure nobody wants to do any further discussion on it. Anybody? Hearing, seeing none. Mary, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I'd like to move to approve the rezoning.
Motion to
Of
recommend
you-
approval?
Pardon?
Motion to recommend approval of the
Yeah,
rezoning?
That's what we
Thank
want to
you.
do.
It would be my pleasure to second that motion.
I'm sorry, who seconded the motion?
I did, Marilyn.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All right, call the roll, please, Leslie.
Mr. Scheckman,
Yes.
Ms. Furtick,
Yes.
Mr. McTeague,
Yes.
Ms. McCartney,
Yes.
Mr. Gannon,
Yes.
Ms. Mamano,
Yes.
Vice Chair Cohen,
Yes.
Chair Wayman.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously. So, thank you. All right, let's move on to communication to the city. Does anybody have anything they want to communicate to the city?
I just wanted to say, in piggybacking on what Mary said about people being able to attend the meetings, do we still have Zoom? Did we get rid of Zoom? Because, I don't understand why we wouldn't continue with Zoom if we don't have it. If we don't have it now, I don't know if we have it, but if we don't have it, why would we not continue and put it on, and put a little, one of those little squares that you take a picture of on the notice on how to get on Zoom, so people don't have to look it up and do all kinds of stuff, or at least put the Zoom location on the notice so someone can just type it in instead of going onto the site, looking up the Zoom, trying to find the Zoom. I think it would make it a lot easier, and I think that it would be better for neighborhood participation. So that's what I would ask the city to reinstate, especially now, because we have limited space here, and obviously it's a little bit further away than downtown Fort Lauderdale. But I didn't even know where this was today until I had to look it up. And I think that it would make it easier for everybody.
Some of us have spent a lifetime in this lobby, my friend.
Yeah.
Some of us have spent a
So-
lifetime in this lobby.
I'm glad you brought that up, Brad. I think there are different ways to hold participation, but this is like, as I said, the second time in recent months that we've had a lot of people from a neighborhood come out and found out that the participation meetings were not being held in convenient locations. I think that when you're doing it with a neighborhood, rather than grouping everybody together, the whole point of this is involvement. And so I would say that we could be approaching the neighbors, the associations and so forth, to see what facilities in their neighborhoods could host a meeting, whether it's a church or a school or a community center or whatever. And someone's house, that's fine. And instead of then Brad's idea of Zoom is fine too, but that's specific to that neighborhood so that that neighborhood can become engaged. That was the whole purpose of community participation, and I don't know how we got off of that.
I would agree that I don't think anybody wants to be left out of the process of being heard. I personally am not a Zoom fan, and you don't know who missed it until you find out they missed it. I would advocate that the city should go out and identify a minimum of 2 locations in each district that are the same places over and over so that neighbors get to know that there's going to be a meeting in one of the 2 places. Church is a great idea, whether, there's a public facility that the city owns, but have 2, for us, just like Brad said, I didn't know where I was going today. Well, we were all used to going to the chambers. Now we have to find our way, and we're going to apparently in a few months find ourselves going somewhere else, and it's inconvenient. If you know that you're going to have a neighborhood meeting in your district, and it's going to be in 1 or 2, or maybe 1 or 3 places, as opposed to whatever seems convenient to somebody else, let the city dictate where the meetings are, and people have to carpool or whatever and go to that location.
But why would we not have them be community-based when you're dealing with community issues? In every community, there are places where people can meet, and who knows that better
That's what
than
I'm saying. I'm agreeing
No,
with
but
that.
I'm not saying have 1 or 2 per district. I'm saying work with your local community to find where, and there, because I think, okay, so in let's take District 4, where Riverside Park came. It's a very long district, so to have it on the beach when it might be on the new river, on Riverland Road or whatever, I don't know. I think that the whole purpose of this was community and working with communities. And so you work with communities and you ask them to help you plan the community participation meeting. And I think a lot of people are already doing that. I just haven't seen it necessarily on the ones that the city's sponsoring.
I don't think people are trying to thwart community involvement. I asked you before, and I think I know Southwest Fort Lauderdale pretty well. I don't know of a place closer to 31st Avenue that has the necessary requirements of parking, bathrooms, air conditioning, lighting, public meeting space. If there is one, that's great, then it ought to be identified.
Well, that's what Mr. Covington was saying when he spoke, I think, that.
Riverland Park is where we have our MTOA meeting.
Open park, or is there a facility there that can accommodate? Okay, so the city staff should take note that, if that it should be added as a location.
You definitely don't know Southwest Fort Lauderdale.
Mr. Chair?
Well, just a point, this isn't really a communication to the city, but I've noticed that a lot of the people who come in here, I see Ms. Crush is here tonight, and with their clients, have community meetings that are in a community. All I'm asking is, the 2 cases that I'm referring to are both city cases, is that the city make the same effort to hold those community meetings. And that's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for communication to the city. I think it's a city issue.
Consider it communicated.
The commissioner is there most of the time. She comes to our meeting at Riverland Park.
Okay.
Right next to the fire station on 27th Avenue.
All right. Anything else? Communication to the city commission. I don't know if my comment comes under communication to the city commissioner for the good of the city of Fort Lauderdale, but I will tell you that I was a little bit taken aback that this board unanimously, I always have a hard time with that word, unanimously voted against 0-9 the historical item that got presented to the city commission yesterday. And I get that we're just an advisory to the city commission, but when something goes down 0-9 and it still just gets presented to the city, it makes me scratch my head and wonder, okay, what's our role in this? My recollection, and I was not able to watch it, but my recollection in hearsay was that the item passed 3-2. So, can somebody explain the process to me? Because I thought, a unanimous decision against the item that went before the city yesterday would at least.
Be conveyed as such?
Well, yeah, there was some pretty spirited conversation on the whole item, and it just went anyway, so.
Thank you for
Mr. Chair?
bringing that up.
Mary,
Mr. Chair.
you have a comment?
I said, thank you so much for bringing that up. I had the same reaction when I saw it, and we had at least 3 conversations, maybe 4, on this particular issue. And I know we're an advisory board, but it would have been nice if someone had asked us why we did that. And even when I read the backup, it didn't seem like it was presenting it as what we had discussed, rather, here are some options for you, so.
It was offensive. Marilyn?
Yeah, having had a lot of unhappy experiences of similar nature, I have found in my experience that when you take a position that strong and you would like to encourage the commission to do that, it's always a good idea to be there and testify. I mean, just sending a communication, even just taking a vote, even if it's unanimous, okay? It's a good idea to stand there as either as the chair or someone that the chair designates to make our position known. I think it might have gone differently had there been a showing. Well, that's speculation on my part, but I can only say that in my experience that it has been you have a better chance of making your position known in person than just in a vote and a communication.
Okay.
And I have a question. What does it mean on here that there's city manager, commissioner, and commissioner? What's this mean
These are
over
all
here?
dialed to a specific person that came off the dais at City Hall.
Oh, so we're not
It
supposed
says
to
from
call
now
them?
on, you are the city manager, Marilyn. You are now the city manager.
So we're not supposed to do anything with this or call anybody?
And you're sitting next to Vice Mayor Beasley Pittman, just so that you understand.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody else have anything to add, or can we adjourn this
Can I
meeting?
just make a suggestion in light of what was just said a while ago? That's why I asked on the first item that you recommended denial on, to clearly state your reasoning for it.
No, I
Because
understand
once the reason isn't stated, because if you say something based on the record, some folks don't necessarily read through all of the minutes. Some do,
Who are some
but
folks?
some don't. I don't know who that is, but I'm just
You're not-
saying.
You're not referring to commissioners or their staff.
So you have an
The
idea.
bottom line is, in your motion, sometimes it's even better to do a motion to recommend denial right off the bat and explain in your motion why you're recommending denial, and that's clear as to the direction that you are recommending. But once if it's vague, it's just that. So
You would
just a
hope the
suggestion.
backup in the conversation would support the motion.
Could I just respond to that real quickly? And in many cases, I think that's true, and I'm glad you give us that guidance. In this case, Mr. Scheckman, on the very first time we discussed the split zoning that we all eventually agreed with because of the input from the community. And there was extensive community participation in this. So I would say it was very clear as to why that split zoning. I would have hoped that staff would have explained that as well, why that came forward, so.
Which one, Mary? The rezoning of South Middle River, Mary? Is that
I
what
think
you're
they
talking
listened to the CRA. I spoke to a commission, and they trusted the CRA that what they wanted and what they've been into it for a long time. That's really what it was. I think the decision was made already before we even, did our
about? I think
suggestion.
staff
Chair,
wanted it too.
under the good of the city, did the board want to discuss the parking reduction follow-up, or do you want to
Not
leave that
tonight.
to? Okay,
Let's say, well, my personal opinion is not tonight, for some other night.
thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.